Well, hello everyone. Welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is the Breaking Free Show. And we are live, and I am so excited to be here with you today. It's a good day in our neighborhood, and it's sunny. It's beautiful. It's almost like a real spring here in North Carolina, so it's very exciting. And just so you know, our show is about breaking free, and so we always love to bring you cutting edge ideas, philosophies, stories, personal stories, people that are doing things so that we all can be inspired to listen, to do something different, to feel something different, to just take on more of life. And we're going to do that today. So before we get started, I just want to say hi to my friend Amnon, who without him, my goodness gracious, I would
Hello.
not have the show.
How are you?
I'm good, and you?
I am just fine.
And
Thank
did you have a nice weekend?
you. I had a nice week.
And
We
what
spent
did
it outside.
you did?
Just
You mean you didn't
chilling.
work?
Nothing. Well,
What
I
is
did my
that
show,
like?
but
What do you do? What do you do
I
when you
don't know.
just
I
sit
just
out there and do nothing?
just,
I don't
just
know.
sit around,
And just
absorb the sun.
chat, like you chatted.
Yeah, I mean, Kathy and me, and we were just sitting
had
around.
fun, huh?
talking. Yeah.
Good, good. Well,
was nice.
it was nice, huh? It was a
good.
nice weekend. So I want to give you our numbers. 919-518-9773. Call us whenever the moment, the mood, the instinct, the inspiration, the intuitive flutter, and whatever that is. Call us anytime you have a comment or anything you want to make. And you can also connect with us on computers. That's plural. The number 2K voice. That's you'll come in on voice on Skype. Also, we have a chat, and there are some people in there. So please feel free to go put your name in the little window, below the video, and take part in our chat. You can ask us questions again in there and comment and get to know the people in our chat. And I want to welcome you and thank you all for being there already. So today we're going to talk about lots of different things and things that maybe you don't usually talk about but are curious about, or maybe you don't even know to be curious about it because you're not aware of it yet. So we're going to take a snapshot, a big light into some areas that are going to be exciting, and I'm going to be curious, very curious, because a lot of the stuff I don't know about, but I have a sense, and I'm sure you do too. So let's welcome my friend, Dr. Tatiana Irvin. Hello.
Hello, thank you. Such a pleasure having you. Welcome me onto the show today. This is going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be great. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. As am I. I
Thank
am
you.
thrilled to be here, Marilyn.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Irvin, my friend Tatiana, has written a book, which is very interesting, and it's called The Reluctant Intuitive. So tell everybody what that is.
Well, the title gives a lot away, and actually the artwork on the cover gives even more away to the discerning eye. It is a glass that is half full with water, and it also happens to have a blue pill and a red pill at the base of that glass. So the symbolism is really very much pertinent to how I viewed my journey in writing the book, which was entirely reluctant. Did I want to wake up all the way? Did I want to be responsible for being the initiator and waking others up? So hence the red pill for all of you, cult classic lovers of all things Matrix. And it did take almost 7 years to write the book because of my reluctance to be as vulnerable and bold, having my personal story out there and some of the work that I've done and the whole discovery of intuition as a natural birthright.
Wow. So we have some things to talk about with that. And before we get into all of that, tell everybody about like your stuff, like who you are, all the certificates that you have,
Oh, no.
what your doctorate is in, all that stuff, so they'll know who they're listening to, because
Okay.
that means a lot.
Well, it can. And I, in a world where we do pay a lot of attention to diplomas and certificates and initials behind our name, it was important to me because my original studies, having an intuitive nature, were more esoteric, were more sacred mystery schools, kind of religious understandings, certainly philosophical understandings. And having traveled the world and lived in the Middle East for 6 months during some very intense part of my studies, I realized that to be seen not only as credible, but also, and I think really more importantly, if we want to build bridges of connection that can bring to light the fact that we don't have these opposites or these extremes as much as we think we do. In esoteric sciences and in spiritual dogma, very often There are those that see an extreme polarization in the belief that there are intangibles, folklore, scripture, basically, ancient teachings. How do we put any relevance to it? How is it made scientific? And so for me, it was, well, how do I explore this as deeply as I possibly can? And in so doing, after gaining lots of modalities in healing technologies and in clinical aromatherapy, medical intuitive insights, chakra clearing, working and understanding the energies and principles of crystals, which we take for granted in science and technology. We use crystals rather regularly in various forms of technology. But it's just trying to put some sense around it. It made sense also to complete my degrees. And so I have a master's in metaphysics, which gave me a beautiful background in the bridges that connect esoteric thought with the scientific world. It dabbles in quantum physics, quantum mechanics, which is a really, really exciting,
Yeah, I love that.
evolving
Yeah, we're going
science.
to talk about some of that.
And then the PhD
Yeah.
was in philosophy because I couldn't stop circling back on how many religious traditions, how many deep philosophical truths actually were saying the same thing. They just used different verbiage or different descriptor terms. And so it was a beautiful mosaic blend for me to wrap that up in my education so that I could offer as complete coaching, teaching, authorship for the clients and the audience that I serve.
Well, that is an earful, a mouthful, a heartful, a soulful, a philosophical soul. It's all of those full. It's a lot. So let's look at some of it so we can really get a handle on it. So first of all, I want to understand more about what you mean by intuition being a birthright.
Okay. I don't think any of us question the fact that in a healthy body, if we're born healthy, if we're born disease-free without any anomalies, and we grow, through adolescence and into adulthood without any type of an accident or experiencing anything that would throw our physical bodies back and out of alignment, we all know that we have five senses. That's kind of an understood. We don't talk about them as much as we probably should to understand how they're integrated as well. But we all know that we can see, we all know that we can hear, we all know that we can touch, we all know that we can taste. We understand a lot of these very obviously kinesthetic senses. But when we discuss, even though it's been known since the dawn of time, that deja vu happens, that precognitive moments, you call it maybe a mother's intuition, or your spouse is in trouble and you kind of feel this leaning that you need to do something. Some of the really natural day-to-day experiences that just about every human across the globe can say, yes, I've experienced it or I've had it shared with me. It's a sixth sense, and it's actually a broad range of senses within that sixth sense. It's really not just one. I believe it is our natural birthright, and the reason why it isn't employed as often is because culturally it's been stigmatized out of us. It isn't discussed. It isn't openly and comfortably shared. We don't address it, in elementary school. It isn't part of our traditions to maybe sing about it or, incorporate it into our childhood practice. It's almost sort of, poo-pooed and put away off on the side as kind of too woo-woo. And that's unfortunate because if we understand, and I hope you don't mind my going here now, if we understand, and we've been told in society, since we really understood neurology, that the average person is using less than 10% of their brain. And we hear that, and that seems unfathomable. How could that be true? But why is it acceptable to us that we're using less than 10% of our brain? And then what aspects of our brain are actually firing more often is a whole other layer to it. So I would argue if we're really working on developing our brains to the fullest capacity and our understanding and our awareness as to what we are capable of experiencing as human beings in a full conscious state, we will recognize that intuition as an employable skill set is also going to open up new quadrants of the brain or start firing in areas of the brain that up until now have been maybe a bit more latent societally wise.
So how would you tell our listeners, or what would you suggest to our listeners in understanding this 10% vaguely, because it's kind of vague, because we don't know what 10% that is.
Sure.
And what's left. I mean, because it's all part of our journeys. What would you suggest they do, we do, me included, into getting more into it, in opening up that
Yeah.
consciousness more, and then when you do, what do you find?
Well, that is such a huge question, Marilyn, and I want to upfront say where my area of expertise is. I'm I run a degree of confidence, but what I am not is a specialist of the brain. I am not a neurologist. I'm not a brain surgeon. I have a lot of respect for those that go into that field. What I will tell you that I have learned throughout my entrainment, both through studying and facilitating in meditation, in a lot of deep focus in bringing the hemispheres of the brain more into cooperation with one another, because we know that our left and right hemispheres have a tendency to sequentially misfire. Working with hemisync, binaural beats, guided meditation, my own meditational entrainment that has a lot to do with focus and going internally into the body for reflection, and also conscious, intentional thought and emotional and even cellular wellness protocols, and the intuitive work that I do in session, being able to still the mind and be able to see with the internal eye, has shown me that the level of our brain that we are using most of the time, or I should say the areas of the brain, fight and flight is coming from, old reptilian brain, or what they refer to as kind of the back here in occipital lobe. And as a clinical aromatherapist, they taught us that that stores and facilitates mood and memory. So when you smell something that reminds you of your grandfather's cologne, it immediately takes you back to being like 8 years old. That is an immediate direct impulse that it takes you like a clear shot, like a roller coaster ride, directly back into the last place with which you experienced that memory. It sets a mood for you. Smell is huge for old reptilian brain or lower brainstem. What we're told is that also the hypothalamus, which is responsible, again, speaking only within the edge of my expertise on this, is responsible for the creation and the drop of neural peptides that we know through some study in neuroplasticity is something that we can become addicted to, like a drug. We know that we have norepinephrine and dopamine and other brain chemicals that make us feel good, and we know that a deficit of those generally make us feel lousy, make us feel flat. We experience, depression, even clinical depression. So the hypothalamus and our addiction potentially to states of consciousness, whether it be the victim, moments of rage, those that have a strong sex drive that kind of need to feel certain hemispheres of the brain to be focused on that expression coming out for them. We can become addicted to our own neural peptides and the hypothalamus, and that can be a misuse of how our neurons are ultimately going to fire, because the adage is what fires together wires together. So apoptosis is this whole other thing that we're starting to understand, which is ultimately cellular death. If I am not firing from a place in my brain that is positive and forward thinking and optimistic, but I'm stuck in any kind of a regimen that has me feeling guilty or shamed or victimized, then I'm actually dropping neural peptides that agree with that and ultimately getting into addictive states with it. So neuroplasticity kind of plays into it. And I've studied that to a degree, and understanding that where really are we when we are in an optimal forward thinking use of our brain. And apparently all studies seem to conclude that would be in prefrontal cortex. So right here. And what's great is about having studied the esoteric philosophies is that that would be considered by Eastern traditions and Eastern philosophy to be the pineal gland representation of the third eye. And when we're in a forward thinking and a forward optimistic, innovative, visionary place in our lives, we have a tendency to be feeling more positive. We have a tendency to be achieving our goals. And to me, that would be one of the areas to focus on. And it happens to be an area that highlights quite a bit when we're in meditation. So all the pieces kind of come together when you start to listen.
Right, and you're not gonna be there from just being from going from your head. That is
Right.
not how it works, because the head is not going to, on its own, be willing to engage in this type of information, in this type of study, in this type of experience on its own, because it's not concrete. So we will have to depend. It's going to be like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's going to be, okay, heart, all of the esoteric, all of that stuff, up to the brain, back down, back up, back
Right.
down, back up, back down, back up. It's going to be like that, I
Sure,
think, right?
sure. Well, that you
Yeah.
just mentioned, that's
So-
the cycle. Meditation isn't all
That's how
about being in your head. As
No.
a matter of fact, it's about recognizing you're not in your head.
Exactly.
Or limited to your head. You really need to be in the breath, which is engaging the whole body,
Right.
in your heart, where you're sending out goodwill to everyone else. You're releasing anything that's stuck and isn't yours and are no longer serving you. So
Yeah,
absolutely.
and so it's a coherent state. It's in this balance, this marriage between the heart and the head, and practicing
Yeah.
what it feels like and you hear this all the time, but what you feel, and I'm sure you hear this all the time. What does it feel like to really be leading with the heart
yes,
and allowing the heart to be, in a lot of cases, the dominant brain, right?
driving force.
The driving
Yeah.
force, and then allowing your other head to have its parts, but to kind of keep working on that heart. So
Absolutely.
so for you in writing this book, what was your biggest learning lesson experience, and certainly the freeing portion of going, what you said, 7 years, right? Did you say 7 years?
Almost 7 years to publishing. Yeah.
Right. So
exactly.
what for you, and as we do these things, we learn so much, for our own self. So what was the biggest gain for you?
You know what, Marilyn? That is still forthcoming. Because
Okay.
I'm going to tell you, when I began writing the book, my practice was really on a very sharp trajectory to being full and very successful, sustainable, great clients, and amazing referral and turnover. And by the time I got to about year 6, dragging my feet and, do I really have to write this? Because I really felt internally drawn and then outwardly encouraged by colleagues and former clients to write it. I realized that the only way to do that was to kind of let go of what I'd built with my practice and just trust that it would rebuild itself when it was appropriate, and get the message out there that would reach far more, of course, the universe permitting, it would reach far more than I was personally able to do in practice. So I'm just in the beginning of the launch with that right now, with my publisher and with a marketing and media campaign. But being at an event just this last weekend where we had the opportunity to engage and speak and share on our mutual writings, I had 2 people come up to me immediately saying, "Hey, I read your book. I heard you, on your webcast here, or I saw it over at the local bookstore there." And so it really did impress on my mind. I did a good thing, and maybe the return on investment will be much more obvious. And certainly it feels wonderful when someone tells you that you've made an impact on their life. So
Right.
it's still coming.
Yeah, it's interesting when that happens. I had a woman just stand by my table, and I didn't know who she was, and I was just starting to talk a little bit about my book. She started to cry in the moment, and I promise you, she stood with me for about 2 minutes, and I didn't even say much,
Wow.
and she just started to cry,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Whoa!" So it is. It's
You made safe space for her, didn't you? You touched her place.
Yeah. So I guess, aside from what we're going to talk about, just for those of you who are sitting on something, whether you want to put it in a blog, an article, a book, wherever it is, get your messages out, because people really do appreciate the messages that they hear from people like you, from people like us, from all of us. They really appreciate it, and somebody somewhere is going to resonate with just the perfect thing that you're going to share.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend that you take that route. So tell me, before I do that, again, I want to remind everybody out there, to please feel free to give us a call. We love it. 919-518, bring it on, 919-518-9773, or computers, that's plural, 2K voice, that's the number 2. If you want to come in on Skype and you're somewhere in the world and you don't have a phone, come in on Skype, or by all means, join us in the chat and ask questions and engage with everybody else in there. We'd love to have you. And it's fun when you call in and you ask some really great questions. I would love it. So please feel free to do that. So talk to us about things that are happening, the things that are buzzing that you have been curious about and
Yeah.
learning more about, that you can share with us, and it's wonderful because sometimes you don't always know where to go for certain bits of information, and some of it is complex.
Sure.
So it's a wonderful opportunity to hear the complex, but also hear the explanation.
Right.
And understanding it. So here's a fabulous opportunity. So tell me what the buzz is.
Oh, so what the buzz is, as I am directed, because I really think that what excites us is going to excite those that we're meant to touch, right?
Right.
That's the way it should be. So always fascinated by what's going on again in science as it's evolving, some of the discoveries. And this isn't the stuff that we're always going to hear mainstream, right? We have to know where to look, and we have to know how to dig a little bit. But when I'll throw out to, maybe a group of colleagues just kind of off the cuff, hey, have you heard what's going on with Neuralink? Are you aware of, some of the developments at CERN? And you just kind of wait and see what somebody says. And then you realize, or at least I've come to realize rather surprisingly, sometimes 80 to 90+% have no idea what I'm talking about. And I realize, well, why is that? We are in an information society that really still is geared towards the information being packaged and delivered, and we're inundated with what certain powers that be want us to know rather than what might really be of interest to us. So I'm one of those energy information archaeologists, I guess, if you will. And I'm looking for the things that are relevant to some of these, to me, very, very foundational philosophical understandings and beliefs about who we are and what we're here to do and what we're capable of, continually being proved in science. So on that note, I find it fascinating that in a recent documentary that was based on peer-reviewed science in the field of, understanding physics as quantum physics is evolving, dark matter, what is the nature of what we consider to be reality. We were all taught in physical science that it was about stuff, it was about materiality, it was about an atom, and we've got our electrons, we've got our neutrons, we've got protons, but they were all things, and we were taught they were things. And what current science is saying is it's really not about stuff. It's not about solid anything. It's really about wave. It's really all energy, and it's actually witnessed and experienced more in wave. And when you're looking at it in terms of vibration and wave frequency, all of a sudden, all this empty space that we knew was there, that they just thought was a vast sea of nothingness, turned out to be intelligent energy waiting to come into form. So out of 100% of what we're seeing, only 4% of it is even mass. Is considered matter. 4%. What's going on with the 96%? That should be so exciting to so many people. Well, it kind of answers a lot.
Okay, so when you say form,
yes,
are you meaning understanding? What are you meaning when you say 4% is form?
It is in matter, mass, density. The stuff that we're touching, our bodies, this recording studio, the street light, the car, the road,
the stuff
the
that we're aware of.
The stuff that we see in our light spectrum and our ability through the cones and in the eyes, what we are capable of seeing is 4% of what's really there. And we all know that we don't see everything in the light spectrum, right? We already know that there's things that are off the charts in terms of infrared and UV, and we know that we can't even hear everything. We know that dogs and even children, actually hear better than we do and can hear within a certain sound spectrum. But what I think is really cool is as they're starting to use instrumentation to look out into space, kind of like the Hubble telescope, and they're looking instead at frequency, at wave, energy, instead of at mass, all of a sudden they realized what looked like a lot of blank, empty space between the planets actually had this connective thread, kind of like, honestly, it looks like the scans that we have that are photographs of the brain. It's like neurons firing. Everything is connected intelligently, and it all looks very much alive and engaged.
Okay, so here's a question. So is this 4% of what they are letting us know, or is that 4% of all there is?
So out of 100% of what exists, and remember, science is always fine-tuning its language, so you're going to have to deal with my feebleness at an attempt to translate
Well,
what
it's
they're
better
saying.
than mine.
We'll see. Jury's still out on that one.
No, I know it's better.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it makes sense to the intuitive because I know that I am trained to see and feel and hear more than what I'm told is there. And what I'm told is there is this world of mass, this
Right.
world of matter. That's what I mean when I say form.
So this is very interesting because I believe that, and I love what you just said about being trained and being an intuitive because a lot of you out there are intuitive, right?
Sure.
Because we all are, right?
Everyone is.
So what we're hearing is that you're right.
Yeah, confirmation.
Right? What you're hearing is that you're right.
That's right.
That you see things, hear things, know things, feel things, whatever, and beyond that now, that's there.
Yes.
Okay, now we're going to find out what that there is of some of what that there is.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Well, what was fascinating was that there is out of that 100%. So what happened to the original or the remaining 96%? Right. That's the next question. And yeah,
Amnon has a question.
I don't know,
this is
but
getting
are
too
you
serious.
safe?
Do you believe in atoms?
do I believe
Atoms?
at atoms? ATOMS.
ATOM?
Sure.
Do you believe them?
Do I believe that they exist?
I don't believe a thing.
Well, let me tell you
Let
what
me
I
tell
say
you why.
when I say I believe
Let me
it.
tell you why.
Yeah.
They make up everything.
Who does?
Ah,
They meaning
the they. He means capital they
Oh,
with
they.
with punk.
Okay,
You know, yeah.
okay.
They make up everything.
That's why.
So don't believe in them.
It's a great play on words. Are
It
you
is.
catching his humor?
No.
I'm catching him.
Tell me what he said.
Amnon told a great joke just now.
Okay,
and at
I
the same
missed
time, it
it.
was a provocative comment. I really like it.
What was it? Because I missed
What
it.
what is everything made out of?
Okay.
There's atoms in
Everything.
everything.
Right. Okay.
They make up everything. How can you believe them?
See, he
Got
caught us.
it.
He
Okay.
caught
Took
us.
me
Never
twice.
mind.
Okay,
He
I
got
got
us.
it. Thank you.
No, I was getting serious.
No, I mean, okay, but I could go into that too, because but that was a good point.
Good one.
That was a good one. So, all right, go ahead.
Well, I'm just revisiting that 96%.
Yeah.
Current quantum physicists are now asserting, and we've got a lot of implementations we can talk about as to what the technology has advanced to get to the point that they can make this assertion. But we know that they can backstep with science. Science is hopefully not so arrogant and rigid that it doesn't realize that it actually, replaces itself rather frequently, right?
Absolutely.
But they're saying 20% is dark matter, and that an additional, 70+% is just dark space. It's kind of a void. What's fascinating is the instrumentation, and they did literally put a filter on a photographic lens for the Hubble spacecraft, and they focused on a certain point in space, and I can't tell you where it actually was in the heavens because that was less relevant. It had more to do with the fact that it was replicable no matter where they shot the camera. Mm-hmm. That when they weren't looking for things, when they weren't looking for the 4%, the matter, in trying to demonstrate what is and what isn't, but instead just looked at it at the level of a wave.
Right.
All of the sudden, the space was completely full, and that dark matter and that dark space started to represent itself as this amazing, it looked kind of, again, like looking at a brain scan with the neurons of the brain. If you're familiar with Daniel Amen in the Amen Clinic and looking at PET scans and CAT scans, it was like looking at all of this electrical neuron firing of the brain. And that's what space looked like. And they realized there's a lot going on out there that when we're so limited by what the human eye spectrum can see, and we think it's all about what's going on in our heads instead of so much more of how far out of our bodies we actually exist, which is measurable too, then there's a whole new field of study to start taking a look at, and we're not limited to what we can see anymore. Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool.
And where is this being done, this work? A lot of this work.
Oh, you know what? I'm not going to refer back to all of the magazines and articles, but what I will do, because I think that something really fabulous has been done for the layperson, and I'm referring to myself when I say a layperson.
Well, and that's how I want to know.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would recommend to any of your viewers to go and please do not pass go, do not collect $200. Go subscribe. Try a free subscription to Gaia TV. the way that they bring all of these documentaries together, some of the real hard and fast science, a lot of the archaeology, things that are out of place with, the timelines that we've been given for the evolution of man, for the evolution of civilizations, what's going on in space, what we're capable of in terms of really being limited to this reality, and why sometimes we experience alternate realities and what that means, which gets into some other science that's evolving, like I mentioned with CERN and quantum computing, for instance. I think Gaia has done an amazing job of packaging it in bite size, really deeply informational delivery systems in their documentaries and in their in the shows like this, where there's great interviews that are going on, to piece it together so that we've got a good contextual place to start in understanding what's going on.
What about locale? Are there certain areas that are showing more, showing a stronger impetus to be doing this kinds of work? Is it California? Is it Europe?
Right.
Is it, where is it being done? Where are these brains? Where are these people that are recognized that if they don't look at this space, they're going to see something? Because that's basically what you're
There you
saying,
go.
right?
There you go.
If they don't look, that's when they're going to find something. You have to understand that.
Yes.
So where do you see these people? Where are they?
Well, it's becoming increasingly more public. I mean, I could tell you, of course, within various government organizations, it's understood. So DC is a big hub. But there are a lot of technological minds and a lot of forward-thinking minds, yes, on the West Coast, up in Silicon Valley. I watched a really profound and honestly, it was kind of a ground shaking, beyond groundbreaking. It was a ground shaking TED-style talk by a gentleman that is one of the founders of a company called D-Wave in Silicon Valley. His name was Geordie Rose, and that's Geordie, Rose, Rose. And it was one of these great symposiums where the local minds were getting together and they were talking about some of what the public should be anticipating, hearing more about much more commonly. There are lots of places on the web that you can get on with some online subscriptions. I get Inverse. It drops into my email box on a regular basis, and it tells me what Elon Musk is up to with SpaceX and is...
So who is he?
Elon Musk. Yes. Well, you know what? It's a good question. You'd be surprised how many people don't know that answer.
I want to
either.
ask everything.
Ask it all.
Because I think that, I just wrote to Chris on the chat, because I think that, not think, I know, I don't have to do we don't have to do any one particular thing on the
Right.
show other than to inspire, create interest, create positive energy. Of course, I always want to do, but also I think these are the kinds of things that I personally am curious in digging into.
Yeah.
You know,
Let's
I
build
think
inquiry.
this is, for me, this is where I want to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important. So I'm curious, and I don't know that much. So I want to ask, when you say that, it's not, his name is not common to me.
Well, you know what? I think that it's going to become far more so because he's got his hand in so many pies. Those that were following, a lot of these big gurus back in Silicon Valley, and when I say gurus, I mean businessmen that had very forward-thinking minds. His first major accomplishment was bringing PayPal to the public and bringing it,
Okay.
into business and commerce. And then he sold it to eBay.
Yep.
And I think that set him on the trajectory to being the billionaire that he is now.
Okay.
And with that money and with that foundation, and also a tremendous amount of support and respect for how efficient a businessman he is, he then started Tesla Motors,
Oh, yeah.
which is now Tesla Inc., because apparently there's going to be new technologies that are Nikola Tesla's patents and some of his original inceptions and innovations that we're going to see soon. But he is also the founder of a number of other companies. SpaceX, he's been launching rockets just like NASA. A lot of people aren't even aware that that's going on, but we know that NASA's kind of toned down the space program, but there are other factions that are maybe privatized that have only really just gotten going. And SpaceX is one of them. He has a multi-square-foot gigafactory being built in northern Nevada. And that is going to be looking at these very specific batteries for his technologies, particularly in his vehicles, because he just keeps coming out with new innovations in, electric vehicles and solar panels. Right now he's working with a solar panel company. And I find one of the most fascinating things that he's doing right now, and equally alarming, and one that makes you kind of want to wake up and pay attention, and it marries really well with what Geordie Rose talked about with D-Wave. And that is that artificial intelligence, AI, everything that Hollywood has shown us, it's not a future thing anymore, folks. It's here. It's been here a while.
I have a blog on my thing just now, actually, that a dear colleague of mine, Bruce Oberhart, if you're listening, is a phenomenal scientist. He is amazing. He created this thing that does something with blood, and he saves lives every day, and he'll tell you this, but he's always digging into something. And we just took a whole article, a really good article on LinkedIn about artificial intelligence and the job market and where things are going and what will be and what may not be and who will be and who won't be replaced.
That's right.
Or not replaced. And it was so interesting because one of the areas that Bruce said won't be replaced is a hairdresser.
And hopefully your therapist, right? AKA your hairdresser.
Honestly, that's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
Your hairdresser, and also the creative aspect of the hairdresser, but also because they are a therapist.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
We need those human connections, don't we?
We do. How interesting. So, I mean, if you go to MarilynShannon.com and check out my latest blog, it is interesting. But
your blog is spot on.
Yeah,
I want to play with that a little bit.
Yeah,
because,
let's play with it.
That's been, Elon Musk was recently in Dubai at a World Business Summit, and he's sitting there on stage, and I can't tell how big the audience was. It looked massive. But he's talking with one of these sheiks, and I'm not even going to quote the sheik because it was far less relevant to what really was the line of inquiry that was coming forth from Elon Musk. But he was talking about the fact that with artificial intelligence, with robotics, and we already know that this has happened in other industries. We know that robots are putting together car parts and weaving together, utensils, and so many things that used to be handcrafted have been robotic for a long time. But AI is supposed to, according to Geordie Rose, in 5 years or less, replace us as being more efficient and more, he said, his exact words, I'm just going to say it. He said they're going to be better than us at everything. And you got to feel into the implications of that. He said, and it isn't just computing, and it isn't just robotics. He said better than everything. And then that touches on what's next then, and bouncing a little bit back to some Stephen Hawking and also some Elon Musk, which is, well, once they can replace everything that people now find meaningful in their lives as their trade or their practice, we're looking at losing over 75% of the global workforce. Over 75% of the global workforce. There's already self-driving cars, right? And he says, how will people find meaning? And that's really something to be talking about right now. But something I find a little bit alarming, and I think that everyone ought to be aware of, and why I'm such a big proponent of developing intuition, getting out of fight, flight, fear, arguing with each other over the administration, over the global state of the financial, future that we're looking at. If we're not coming from something innovative and visionary and solutionary and regenerative, we are just part of the sweeping problem, which is we're misusing our energy, and we are far more in survival, fight and flight, lower brain, and we're so controllable that way. Why would we want to be that way? So if they're heading on the trajectory that they appear to be, both Geordie Rose and just even Elon Musk as really good points of reference, they're building with Neuralink a neural lace. It is innovation right now. It is in the works that is supposed to either be surgically inserted into our bodies or inhaled. I think they've talked about inhaling it. That is going to connect us to the World Wide Web via the cloud and becoming one with artificial intelligence that already exists, that's already been here, and the world of quantum reality. Now think about, have you ever worn an Oculus on your head? Okay, so for big gamers, nothing is cooler, right, than getting in this artificial reality. And you put an Oculus or some of this new technology on your head, and all of a sudden you're one with the game, which is kind of synonymous to life, right?
Right.
The whole goal is to put us into a one with artificial intelligence and with one another at all times. And how would we, with any degree of confidence and with any degree of maintaining our sovereignty, be willing to take up a neural link that connects us to everybody if we really were always still coming from a place of, not really being conscious
Right.
and so easily controllable?
Right.
It's a thought.
And I don't think a robot can take us into consciousness, can they?
I don't know who's running the robot. You know, as far as I'm
It's gotta be
concerned,
running
I'd like
yeah.
to know a lot more about it,
Yeah.
and I'm certainly not going to opt in at this point. But they're not talking about when. I mean, if it's when. We're
And
talking 5 years or less.
It's soon.
It's very, very soon. It's imminent.
Very, very soon.
It's imminent. People are already getting chipped around the world, little size of a grain of rice under their hands, and they swipe their little Apple Pay, they swipe their little, ID badge, and so the integration in becoming a little bit more on the cyborg end has already begun.
Yeah, it's funny because when something comes up, I don't know. Sometimes I just don't know if it's real or not because it's so probable that it can be real. And somebody sent me a video of a where they were like dialing their hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wasn't sure if it was real or. I mean, seriously, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Because it's happening so fast. How do I know? But what I do know.
It's
What?
backwards.
What do you mean?
It's. I mean, if you have it in your hand, you should not have to dial it.
Good
You
point.
just think it.
That's right. That's
That's
neural
right.
lace right there,
Yeah.
based on what they're
That's
saying.
true,
Yeah.
actually. Well, that's really something. Well, it's all so fascinating to me, but again, the intuition.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see us ditching that.
No.
No, we have to have
You need
that.
that for discernment,
Yes,
just to even navigate what's coming.
We need to have this so that we can. I mean, who's feeding the robot? Who is creating all this? I
Who
mean,
writes the software?
Yeah, I mean,
that's right.
it's
Who
got-
writes the viruses in the
right,
software?
Exactly. So it's fascinating. Okay, so before we go on any further, I'm just going to say 919-518-9773. Here's a chance. What do you know? What do you know that we have either talked about or haven't talked about? Because please, I'd love to hear it.
That's right.
919-518-9773. What have you been reading? What have you been witness to? What have you heard? What are you questioning? Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. Or computers, that's plural, 2K voice. Before we go any further, tell everybody where they can find your book, the name of your book, do a little bit of that lovely
Great.
marketing.
Great. I will do a little bit of promotion here. I am the author of The Reluctant Intuitive, which is also in subtitle, A Soulful Confession and a Practical Guide. Because it is really about my telling my story, waking up to my intuition, or waking up to the fact that it was already kind of up and running, and trying to direct my life, and trying to build language around that, and an understanding of where there were others that I could study and build off of it and expand. And it's my goal to bring that through with all of my clients as they're interested, of course. When they come and see me, I don't want to be seen as the intuitive guru. That's really not what I am. I don't consider myself a medium or, a psychic. I consider myself more tuned into my intuition than some, and a guide to be able to bring others more into their intuition, which I believe, yes, is absolutely our natural birthright. Parts of it fire with the brain, but are you limited to the capacity of your brain? No, absolutely not. We just know that certain parts of the brain fire when we're in lower brain, when we're in just the mechanisms of day to day, or when we're in a stress place. We're really working with the lower faculties of the brain. We're not coming from a place that is going to keep us positive and forward thinking and have our neural activity be really making us feel good because of the biochemistry and the neurochemistry that we're having. So go to www.thereluctantintuitivebook.com. And I have a local practice here as Dr. Tatiana Irvin, and it is www.drtatianairvin.com.
So
Happy to have you.
do you think that there is something beyond intuition?
Tell me what you mean by that.
I don't know. I'm hearing this message that intuition, because it does change, right? You can have intuition about something, right?
Sure.
And then it can shift. It can change. It can grow. It can change. The day changes. You know what I mean? You can feel something for today,
It's malleable.
right? And then it can
Yeah.
change. So I feel like there's something that's a layer, that's a level. What is there to tap into beyond that? I mean, I don't know. I'm getting this message. I don't know if it's what it means yet, but I'm just curious what you might think.
Well, I think that for the sake of developing it as a practical skill set, I think it's pretty safe to be able to get a firm grip on intuition being such a broad range of implementable skills. Clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. We've got people who can do telekinesis, the ability to communicate mind to mind, soul to soul. There's a wide range. God touch. I mean, I've got actually an intuitive assessment that is part of my book, and it's on my website. And for interested parties, I'm happy to send it to them complimentarily, because you need to know, where am I and where do I want to take this. But what you did say, and what I thought was really cool, is that you may get an intuitive hit one day, and then you find that that intuitive hit has led to or morphed into a different answer maybe the next day, or the reality that you kind of saw coming isn't what happened. And that hits on two things that I think would be really fun to chat about if you want to go there, Marilyn. And one of them is, we're actively co-creating every single day. So sometimes using our intuition will help us, zigzag around something that might have been a trajectory that we were headed on that was either in our best interest or not in our best interest. And we made a different decision and we actively co-created differently.
Right.
But getting back to science again and this cutting edge stuff, we know with quantum computing, and according to Geordie Rose, these quantum computers breach through the parallel universes, which he states very emphatically. I really recommend people watch this talk on YouTube. He says they can exploit the parallel universes that are as equally real, detail for detail, personality for personality, as what we're experiencing right now. And there are those, if you run with the idea of reality shifts and quantum realities, that you can actually choose a different reality that you may want to be in other than the one you're in. So it's beyond the law of attraction. It's beyond, godlike co-creation. We're talking, I don't like the planet Earth version I'm on. This is like right out of, Marvel Comics, DC Comics. Any of you people that love The Flash, the Hadron Collider in Star Labs, they've got it. It's called CERN. It is in Geneva, Switzerland, and they are absolutely colliding particles, and they have already identified what they consider to be the God particle. They named it the Higgs boson. I don't know what scientists blended their names for that crazy name, but they're calling it the God particle, and they believe that they can create a singularity or a breach in the space-time continuum and in layered parallel universes. This is mind-blowing stuff. So how much control do you really have over your life? We don't even know yet, but the implications are enormous.
Right.
And without intuition, we're flying blind all the time.
Yep.
We're flying
Yep,
blind.
Yep. And then you have, and I'm not sure, we don't know where everything, so there's no like, this may be first, this may be second. It's just all there.
Dive in where it's comfortable.
It's just dive, So there's
Yeah.
the what I read, conscious coherence or collective coherence, where you're just, where people are just right there on the same, at the same
Yeah.
time, in the same way, in the same moment. Get it. So there's some questions a question on the chat, but before we do, I just want to remind everybody to please follow this show on iTunes. Just go to iTunes, a Breaking Free show. You'll see my picture because there's other ones there, and the only way you can know if it's me is there. So go there, follow us there so you can, be aware of the shows that we do. It's very important to know that you're there. We feel your energy and your power. That's important. I also wanted, just to kind of put up my book, In Just One Afternoon, Listening into the Hearts of Men. Last Friday, it became a #1 bestseller.
Yay!
I forget to tell
Congratulations.
everybody on Amazon. I was
Speak it.
it was very exciting.
There you go. Take a bow.
You're making me blush, but it's very exciting, and I was like, oh my God, look what's happening. So I was really, really excited, and we're running a promotion, just so all of you know, on Goodreads until the 12th. We're going to be giving away 10 books, so if you're on Goodreads, please go there. And the fun thing is, I looked at it this morning, and believe me, I'm flabbergasted by this. This is just like, I have no way of gauging, but I'm just flabbergasted that there was 153 people who requested to be part of, I think, the promotion on Goodreads. So I was really excited.
Phenomenal.
But it is. Look, it is phenomenal, and I want to support you. Like Tatiana and I want to support each other. We want to support you in doing these things.
That's right.
So please go to get our books, Amazon. You can get ebooks. You can get books, and just let us know your thoughts. So here. Barbara says she refers to her intuition as her spirit guide. And when she lets go and trusts it, it always ends up with what she wants or needs.
Okay.
But when she starts questioning or overthinking something, then it seems to be lost. Well, uh-huh. So how does she stop fighting it?
How does she stop fighting it? Well, I think the truth of the matter is there are so many techniques now. And Barbara, I mean, you're in great company. We're all working on really allowing ourselves to settle in to that knowing and not be redirected back to how we've all been entrained. We've all been entrained to believe the truth is out here. And the teachers, the professors, the experts are out here, they're out here, they're out here. And the truth of the matter is intuition isn't out here. Intuition comes from within. We're all sharing it. We're all running it. If in the moment that we're there to make a decision, if we recognize that heart, you talked about the heart and the head connection, you know, Proverbs 23:7, this is religious philosophy. As one thinks in their heart, so are they. If you're making choices that are always from external dictation, proof, evidence, expertise, you're really not running your own intuition. You know the difference in the way it feels because you can feel it. You're feeling as opposed to over cerebralizing that idea, that concept, that decision. So you got to bring it right in here. And when your body feels good, when your heart warms up, when you feel those tingles or whatever your sensation that you translate to be as being I've got the connection now. I've got my intuitive side. I'm working with prefrontal cortex, pineal gland. I've got heart. Guidance is coming through. I believe in a support system. There's no question that we all have one. It's another topic for another day, but it's there. That's how you know you're making a decision based on the fullness and the wholeness of your faculties and your support system instead of from where we've been trained. Somebody else has got the answer, not you.
Yep. And if it's in your best interest, you're going in the right direction.
Sure.
If it's not in your best interest, then it's probably your head.
Or somebody else's head.
Well, yeah, it's a head
Yeah.
alone, right? It's not
Exactly.
what we're talking about. So that's a very good question because that's a lot of everybody's question. And then Nancy says, I always have learned to remain curious. She said, curiosity can't allow internal arguments. Right?
And being curious means you're also not running from fear, running your energy from fear. Because curiosity is the only way to continue to question authority or question reality. And now that we know that reality is this flexible, it's this mutable, it can be interpreted differently. We already knew that, but apparently it can even be altered. Staying curious and not being afraid while you're investigating is the best place to start.
Yeah, you can't, the arguments, you can, and actually, you can change the word in argument in curiosity to just being more curious.
Right.
Really, because it's curious. Well, this isn't happening. Well, it's curious because you're going to change how you're thinking, feeling, going forward. So it really can't be a kind of a bad argument. It's just more curious.
Sure.
So that's a really great statement. And we've got a few more minutes. So anybody else out there who would like to share more on the chat, give us a call, 919-518-9773, or computers. Again, computers is plural, the number 2K voice, and then, come on in on the chat. So in the last few minutes that you and I have together, what conversation would you like to leave us with?
Well, Marilyn, I think the fact that we're both doing the work that we're doing, which really brings people back to a conscious place of being, like you said, curious, inquisitive. We're opening up lines of inquiry. We're reminding them not to get so stationary, so predictable with their lives that we have a false sense of safety, that as long as I do this, as long as I do X, then Y is going to be taken care of. I think it's been proven that's not true. It doesn't matter whether we're talking about financial crisis and bank bailouts, or I voted for so-and-so, but somebody threw, the primary. We all know that there's a lot that's going on that we don't have a lot of sovereign control over. But what we can do, and what we should start with doing, is keeping the inquiry open about how can I be directing my life? How can I be more in control and more reflective and observant of how I'm impacting the whole?
Right.
And then, of course, with that inquiry, how could you have come across, this amazing book that's just gone if you hadn't taken the time to ask some questions and get people being reflective. It's all about being reflective.
You know, it's so interesting because so many people, you know, in just one afternoon listening to the Hearts of Men want to know, well, I mean, the same question, how did you get men to tell you all that they told me?
Right.
It's no different than talking to, they were no different than talking to anybody. It was the inquiry.
Yeah.
It was the curiosity. It was not having the answer. It was respect. It was all of those things. And that is the recipe
Yeah.
for doing what we're talking about,
Yeah.
is just to like allow it to be. That's it.
Yeah.
Just, I don't have the answers. I might have an answer for a moment for this, but then I am not attached to that answer because I know it's going to change.
That's right.
Right? So you just keep being curious and read some of the things and watch these videos, because I am, and I'm going to start having more and more people on this show that are going to be talking about these things and opening more and more of this conversation up and helping to educate us, because I find personally I learn a lot when I'm sitting next to somebody or when they're on Skype talking to me, you know, and we can really dissect some of this and get into it. So I'm going to do that with you. So, you know, it's exciting.
Yeah.
So final words. What
Final
else?
words.
Final words. Any other areas of inquiry that people should or could be curious about? You mentioned quantum, and we don't have a lot of time to go into it, but I love the idea of quantum. I just love it. So,
Wow.
so touch it. Just touch it.
Well, so quantum physics, metaphysics, it's what's beyond physics. And there's a whole lot, it turns out, beyond the structure of physics. The observer is always affecting what is being observed. The observer is always having an energetic impact on the experiment, the laboratory, whatever. Really, almost nothing's replicable without some
Right.
change.
Right.
And I would have the curiosity be married, if I can just throw this in, Marilyn, with some fun, with some lightheartedness, because the truth is, if we start chasing one conspiracy theory after another, or we start, you know, finding more reasons to draw lines and boundaries around ourselves and they and them and who's the right and who's the wrong, I think we're kind of losing the point. Are you in joy? Are you building up anabolic or catabolic energy in your body? Is the solution coming forward in your life to make your life richer and better and for everyone around you that you care about? And hopefully that's everybody over time. But it's to be enjoying the process of inquiry as well, rather than digging in, looking for who to blame.
Yeah, it's honestly having a sense of humor.
Yes.
Going through this is a riot. I mean, it's a riot. I mean, the things that you discover, right, when you're willing and open and curious and, you know, is great.
Yeah.
It's great, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's great. I mean, the people that are attracted to you, the people you're attracted to, the information and the things that happen that you thought was going to be something else and became something else and all that
Right.
stuff. It's a riot,
Yeah.
and it is fun. It is fun to
Should be.
discover that's the 5%, the 6%, the 10th, to be a part of being a fly on the wall and just observing and enjoying. So I want to thank you so much for being here.
Oh, such a pleasure.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Lots of topics we barely could even touch on, but a good time just
I
bringing them
know.
to light.
It was fun, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, so everybody out there, thanks so much for being here. I'm Nun. You too.
Nancy's saying, embrace the snark.
Embrace the snark.
Oh, yeah. What is, oh my God.
Snarkiness.
Good.
Okay.
Good. Well, thanks everybody that was on the chat, and it was lovely. I love seeing it. And all of you out there, I look forward to seeing you again next week. And don't forget to follow us on YouTube, on iTunes. I'm thinking YouTunes. Can you imagine? Well, that's a combining. YouTunes.
There you go. You knew what you meant.
That was a little Freudian, not slip, but a good thing. So anyway, have a wonderful day. I'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. What fun.
Bye.
You're tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section on nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Atomos.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.